Hi, welcome to In2uni. My name's Karina and I'm a lecturer with the Faculty of Law at the University of Wollongong. Over the next 10 weeks you're starting off a program where hopefully my students and I can give you a little bit of a taste of what it's like to study at university, and in particular why you might want to study a law degree. So that's the big question, I guess. Why would I study law? Now, that can be a really hard question to answer if you don't really know what a law degree is all about. And whether you have an understanding about law and lawyers might depend upon, up to this point, what exposure you've had to law and lawyers. Perhaps some of you know a lawyer. Maybe you know a barrister. A barrister, or judges look quite similar, are the ones that wear the wigs and the fancy gowns and they appear in court. Now, perhaps you might have seen barristers on the TV. They might have been representing a wealthy businessman or someone famous. This is a very traditional view of what a lawyer might look like. But otherwise, many of you might know a solicitor. Perhaps a friend or a family member might be a solicitor. So that might give you some idea about what a lawyer does. A solicitor is the type of lawyer who generally sits in an office and they advise people on a whole range of legal issues. So that's another type of lawyer. If you don't know any lawyers, maybe you've gotten your idea about the law from watching movies. I'm sure some of you have seen the movie Legally Blonde, or you might have watched A Few Good Men, although that's a bit old these days. And this gives you an idea of lawyers. You might notice that the lawyers in those movies look quite different to the lawyers in the pictures I just showed you. And that's because these are American-based lawyers. They don't wear the wigs and gowns. That's very much an Australian and an English old-fashioned idea of lawyers. And these lawyers are sort of normally dressed and walk around the courtroom in a very American style. This might give you a little bit of an idea about what lawyers do, but you need to bear in mind that Hollywood does take a lot of license about what law really is. Even if you haven't watched one of those movies, I'm sure everyone has seen at least one TV show that has a lawyer in it. Lawyers sometimes in the TV shows, such as Law and Order, which you probably see on just about any channel on TV at the moment, often might be fighting to make the world a better place. That's quite a positive image of a lawyer. Unfortunately, you also have images of lawyer, like we have Lionel Hutz in The Simpsons, which is not such a positive image of lawyers. This is more the image of lawyers as perhaps greedy and a little amoral, not the image that we like to portray. Sometimes we do like to think that lawyers are those people fighting for the poor and the needy and the people that really need assistance. But lawyers also assist the famous and the powerful and the wealthy. You might have seen such lawyers on the television or on the news. All of these people are different perceptions or different ideas of what lawyers are. But in fact, there are a whole lot of people that have a law degree and have studied law that don't actually go on to do what we might think of as traditional lawyering. If you look at the next slide, there's a whole lot of people that actually are other types of law graduates. So in fact, politicians such as our current Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, and MP Peter Garrett, both have law degrees and have gone on to use that in public office to go on to be members of parliament and politicians. Other people that you might not know have law degrees are sports people such as Liz Ellis. She's the Australian netballer who actually got her law degree while she was playing netball for Australia. A number of other people you'll find have gone on after doing their law degree to join television, and many of them are comedians such as Charlie Pickering and Sean McAuliffe, both famous people who have law degrees. Not perhaps what you might originally think of as lawyers, but certainly people who have studied law and have made a very fulfilling and interesting career out of it. So I guess that takes us back to that original question of why you might be interested in studying law. Whether you want to go on to be quite a traditional lawyer in the pictures that we showed you, solicitor and barrister, and working in court or advising people on legal issues, that's certainly one option. But otherwise, the skills that a law degree helps you develop are really, really useful no matter what you might be thinking to do after your university studies. So one of the big things that we do as part of your legal studies is that we work on problem solving. We look at problems that people have in real life, and particularly legal issues, and we see how the law works to help those people. We try to work out using hypothetical questions, and some of this is what you might do over the next 10 weeks with the students in your program, is actually look at, okay, if I have a legal problem, how can I use the law to help me solve it? And so not only will you gain problem solving skills, but you'll gain a better understanding of what the law is and how it can be utilised by you in a real life scenario. So perhaps, when you're a little bit older and you're thinking about buying that big screen TV, or perhaps even quite soon you might be thinking about signing up to a mobile phone contract, you need to have a good understanding about what does it really mean when I put that signature on that piece of paper? What does that mean for my responsibilities? What rights do I have if all of a sudden the bill comes in and it's a lot more than I was expecting? There's some of the things that we hope to give you a little taste of over the next 10 weeks. And certainly if you go on to study a law degree, there's some of the things that you'll gain a solid understanding about. So these are real practical life legal skills that you'll gain. In addition to that, another big focus for lawyering and for legal studies is communication skills. So being able to write effectively and being able to speak effectively, whether that is one-on-one when you're dealing with clients or just in an interview situation, or in a much larger scale when you're standing in front of a courtroom. We call that advocacy. All of those things are skills that when you learn them as part of your law degree, you can go on and make really good use of those, even if you decide to perhaps pursue an interest in your own business or marketing or banking, or areas that often law graduates go into if they don't want to follow a traditional law path. So all of these things are things that you can start to think about as you learn about the law over the next 10 weeks. In terms of getting you started, I guess I just wanted to point out a couple of things about Australia's legal system. The first one is that we actually have two ways that laws are made in Australia, two bodies that make these laws. The first one is Parliament. So again, on the slide, you can see Julia Gillard and all the MPs sitting behind her, not all of whom have law degrees, but this is the law-making body of Australia. In terms of the law being the rules of the game, we set the laws up so people understand what they can do and what they can't do, what rights they have and what responsibilities they must undertake. And so those laws, when the Parliament creates them, representing us as society, they write them down and that becomes legislation. And that's one of the key pieces of lawmaking in Australia, in the Australian system. The other key component of the lawmaking system in Australia is the courts. And so this is often where people understand the law can be found, and as we looked at those pictures of lawyers, certainly the barristers and the judges, this is where they're found in the courts. The barrister's job is to present an argument about the law on behalf of their client, and the judge or judges have to sit on the bench and use their problem-solving skills to decide who's right and who might be wrong. And they do that by interpreting the law, so they interpret the legislation that has been given to them by Parliament, or sometimes they use very old-fashioned, called common laws, very old law, that they develop and make themselves. So the courts are the other key way that we make and interpret law in Australia. This is really just an introductory taste of the Australian legal system. You can see on the picture on the side there that we've got the building of the High Court of Australia. That's actually the highest court in the Australian hierarchy. You might have been there yourself, it's found in Canberra. But if not, courts are open public buildings. So if you get a chance, if you're in Canberra, or in fact even in your local court or district court, it can be quite an interesting place to go and see lawyers in action and the law in action. Hopefully I've got you starting to think about why you might want to study a law degree, and I hope you find the next 10 weeks interesting. I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you.